Hello everyone and welcome to Phoenix Gaming. I am your host Nick Henning, and today we are here to tackle the World Series of Board Game 2024 Grand Finals. So what's really important to understand about this game, particularly if you're someone who just did a Dune Imperium search online, is that these four players got to the finals here by winning some game that they were very good at, and then maybe winning some other game that they may or may not have been very good at, and then essentially semi-randomly being assigned to playing this game. So we actually don't know. I don't personally know the experience levels of any of the players at this table, but they are all very good gamers who just ended up essentially climbing to the top of a bunch of other gamers in the process here. So skilled, but not necessarily skilled in this game. These are the most fun videos for me to commentate on because I feel like I have the most to add to them. If you've watched my other videos, you know that Dune Imperium is a game that is still pretty fresh to me. So I think I have a decent amount of understanding at this point, but maybe not some of the nuances that some of the really great content creators out there do have about this game. You can watch this original video on the Dice Tower channel, and you'll see actually the gentleman that is commentating the actual live version of it is Paul Denon, who is the designer, and he is definitely quite knowledgeable about his own game. It looks like this is about a 3-hour long video. So I'm running at 25% increased speed if the players look a little frenetic. I just wanted to make sure that things are moving along. You might even want to watch this on faster speed for yourself. So faster just in total. Everybody's clearly taking their time here. That is a long game of Dune Imperium. And they also start here having missed the video, the first couple rounds of action. So we're going to try to reconstruct before I even play the video what I think has happened so far. So clearly where my head is, that's James. He's in seat 1. And then in seat 2, we've got Jukka. And in seat 3, I am blanking on this gentleman's name, but they're going to show it in just a minute. So we have to fix that. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank here. He and I chatted. He won the Wingspan tournament. So I know what games they won. Oh, James won Cascadia. Jukka won Brass for a second year in a row. This gentleman in the 3rd seat won Wingspan. And the gentleman in the 4th seat, Allan, he won Azul, which I've already actually commentated on this channel if you're interested in checking that out. Looks like Allan decided to grab Helena as a first pick here. I know that in the wider community, Helena is not as well respected as amongst the WSBG community. I can't really explain why that is the case, but Helena gets a lot of respect from the WSBG crowd for one reason or another. She's going to be able to discount something. We see that like opening flop row there has some pretty sick stuff in it. Kwisatz Haderach, obviously a little bit too expensive for people to pick up at the beginning, but if you're able to grab it, it's just an absolutely dirty card. Peter for 5 is pretty solid on turn 1. That's a really nice, good pickup. Guild Bankers usually needs a little bit more support, but can do just some really, really nasty stuff if you're able to get wealthy in the game and buy somehow multiple Spice Must Flows. Hard to pull off, but pretty cool. And then Space Travel and Chris Knife are faction access, which is kind of I think the main perk of those guys, as well as kind of like little incidental bonuses. So actually a pretty spicy flop compared to some other videos of Dune that I've done in the past where some mix of the cards are like nearly unplayable cards. So that'll be really interesting to see if we see any early passes in the first round or anything like that. But the reason I'm going on this rant is that Helena allows you to snatch one off the row, either burning it forever or getting a discount of 1 yourself, which could be really powerful, drawing that signet ring in the beginning of the game. In seat 3, we see a grab of the Beast, who is definitely one of the more powerful guys in base game, just starting with those extra resources, gets you a step ahead. And I believe last year, the winner of the Dune Imperium ring also played the Beast, if I remember correctly. Harkonnen, obviously very, very powerful. Those just extra, essentially, victory points for that Master Stroke play is just a very, very nasty thing, as well as the access to additional intrigue. It is a pain in the butt to get those coins at the beginning. You can kind of get blocked out, which I think makes things pretty difficult, but is something to definitely pay attention to. And then in seat 1, James picking up Count Ilban, which is a very dirty seat 1 pick. He's not concerned about any Duke Atreides competing with him for those green spots, so he's going to be cycling through his deck a ton. And we see, I believe that James is playing red. We see that his first 2 actions in some order, I don't know what order. I'm going to assume, I do know the order. The first thing he did was get the 2 coins up in the Emperor's location, advancing on that track there. And then he used those 2 coins to draw into the Mentat. So he's going to get a 3rd action this turn and draw 2 cards off of his deck, which might mean that he's drawing into a bunch of Persuasion, pick up some of those good guys at the top of the deck. So it'd be really curious to see what his reveal turn looks like. Jukka, meanwhile, looks like he's playing yellow. He does not end up picking up any money on his first turn, so indicating that he does not have his signet ring. Instead, his first action looks like he goes and picks up some water with the Fremen, and then he uses a pair of water to pick up a triple spice, which is a pretty early pickup of triple spice. That's really interesting. Usually you see that kind of accrue more. I don't see often the double water being used in that way at the beginning of the game, and pushing in a handful of troops amidst essentially the Fremen action and that double spice action, trying to grab that early victory point there. So those were his first 2 actions. It looks like in the 3rd seat, we're playing green, and very first action looks like it was to grab 2 spice and push 2 guys into the middle. Contesting here. I mean, even second place here, 2 coins and intrigue is pretty nice for the first round battle. So some good rewards here. And it looks like I think we're about to do the beginning of the second action in that seat. And then Allan in 4th seat, very happily getting 3 coins. Money is hard to come by at the beginning of the game. You're looking for money or spice so you can convert it into money, so you can start getting those council chambers or those swordsmen. So being in 3rd seat and being able to use that Dune the Desert Planet yellow card to get those 3 coins is pretty nice. All right, let's run the video. We got another Dune the Desert Planet here, and we're going to straight up go sell that 2 spice. We've got a rush here. This is 6 coins right off the bat. An absolute rush on making it essentially 2. Actually, it's going to be a turn 2 Swordsmaster, because it's 6 coins here. Plus, looks like maybe he had a starting coin. I think that's what the beast gets. And then he's going to get second place in this battle, most likely, for 2 extra coins. Or tie for first or something. That's actually, no, there's no way. He's going to get second place in this battle. So even if someone comes in after him, getting 3rd place in the battle is fine. We see, it's Joon, that's his name, of course. We see Allan in seat 4, basically uses faction access and heads over to just scoop up an intrigue card. Sort of like Allan's playing definitely more of an accumulation game at the beginning here. James gets an extra persuasion off of the signet ring here, which is a coin. So it might be kind of a limitation of actions, but he could take one of those blue actions in play. And if he had taken one of those blue actions in play, he'd be able to push troops into the middle and at least scoop an easy 3rd place for 2 coins. So I think pretty clearly we're seeing here that he needs that persuasion from that Hall of Oratory up top, because I think grabbing, like Arrakis or Carthage or something like that would be a little bit better. Jukka here doesn't have enough money to do anything. He's going to choose Guild Bankers, faction access, powerful card later for buying spice. I think that's an easy choice at the 3 money. I didn't see if he had 3 or 4 when he flipped. 3 persuasion, but 3 persuasion makes sense because he's played 2 cards. I don't think he's drawn any. So having kept 3 there works out pretty nicely for him. And he didn't advance, so he had no daggers in his hand, which means that Jukka's next turn is going to be a pair of daggers. It looks like pair of daggers and a signet ring is what he's looking at for his next play, where he's going to be leading off with a handful of spice. So there's a good chance that he's going to lead with scooping up some coins for that spice at the beginning of turn 2. We're going to see Joon pass here. I see that looks like a reconnaissance and then 2 cards hidden. Let me stop blocking James's face. I'll move myself into the middle here. They switched it up on me. That does look like the 2 persuasion one, whatever that card is called, the extra money card, and then maybe a dagger. Yes, because he slid up to 5 there. So my guess is that looks like he's got 3 persuasion. Which is sort of essentially like he could pick up one of those basic guys for the 2 persuasion. He could pick up the Chris knife, or he could pick up the space travel. My inclination is space travel is probably the pickup here with 3 persuasion. The Chris knife is neat, but it's really better with kind of the other support from Fremen, and I don't know. I don't think it's a super well regarded card. Space travel also not, like, people don't necessarily love going to the spacing guild that much in base game. Switching it up on me again. Come on now. That much in base game. But even still, we can't discount sort of the fact that it has 2 money on it, the fact that it can draw into more cards if you are going to that fold space spot. So definitely, it's the pick I would have made. Whether that's the right pick or not is certainly an interesting question. Allan here is going to reveal, looks like he's holding on to 4 and a sword, which isn't going to be too much. So 4 here, looks like he just flipped into a smuggler's copter, which is a little bit interesting. He did unfortunately whiff on the Peter, in part because he chose to go to the faction access, which I can't blame him for not going to the faction access, but it is a kind of a curious, would it have been possible to keep that faction access? The dagger, I don't know. That doesn't seem so great. Smuggler's Thopter here needs a little bit of support to be exciting, but is pretty exciting when it is exciting. So a little bit of a speculative play from Allan here, but it is the kind of the most, quote unquote, efficient use of his money. It is also going to mean that he's pretty broke next turn when he draws that signet ring. So it'd be interesting to see if he sort of turns that signet ring into blowing something up or reserving something that he can buy. Might depend on how wealthy other players have. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4 here, plus the 5th one. Like we said, we really thought that James needed that extra persuasion there, and indeed he did. He goes ahead and picks up Peter, easily the most powerful of the gets this turn. It's got a lot of cash on it, which is going to accelerate him towards that Kwisatz Haderach. By cash, I do mean persuasion. And if he plays it just normal as Peter, he gets a free intrigue card. So it does a lot of work, a lot of flexibility, doing 2 kind of divergent things, which is actually I think pretty powerful as an option to walk into the game and say, you know what, I can, with this card on a given turn, have a bunch of cash. I can have a bunch of persuasion. Those are 2 very different options from each other, and you're going to have to decide on any given turn which of those seems more valuable. We're going to see the single spice go up to double spice here, and the something basin, Haga basin maybe? Is that the middle one? I don't know. One of the basins, the 1 spice basin. And going into this round, Jukka is going to be leading in victory points, but way behind in troops for having pushed out last turn. And what else? He's leading. So the question is whether you're going to convert this spice into cash or whether he wants to go get those 2 spice and have some kind of big cash payout, kind of slow roll a little bit. He has this awkward situation where he is going to be last next turn. So if he thinks that other players are going to get a bunch of cash and race him to the spaces that he wants to spend his cash in, it's going to be a pretty bad feeling. He is going to use the signet ring here, turn in all of that spice. I think this is 3 spice, so he's going to pick up, was it $8? And then because he used the ring, my guess is he's going to throw one of those dollars in to get an intrigue card as well. There he goes. Now that does mean that he doesn't have enough money for swordsman. So Joon is in a kind of quaint position here. I mean, I think that the swordsman is probably the most exciting turn 2 play that he can make. If he wants to, though, he could block Council Chamber and really hurt Jukka. I don't think that James needed to grab swordsman right now. It's a little bit dicey because he doesn't see anybody with 8 coins in play. However, Jukka did just draw an intrigue card, and some of those intrigue cards do give coins. So there's kind of like a small percentage chance that Jukka could have taken the swordsman from him if Joon let it be. So maybe he just really, really wanted to value that turn 2 thing. But I can't help but feel that I would have been a little bit greedy with my other action cards and taken the action that I wanted to take early here in Joon's position. So he makes the more conservative play, which is respectable, but I think I would have gone for nabbing up other spots first. Again, we don't really know what's in his hand, so it does kind of depend on what's in his hand. Get a little bit of pocket cam here, but over the shoulder here, it's a bit hard to see. I like that they try to use the pocket cams this year. Unfortunately, I think that they are not as, they have to time using the pocket cam with the player using the pocket cam, and so I've seen as many whiffs as successes on the way there. Helena, I did not see what action Allan took. Oh, it looks like he got himself 3 money. So he's up to 6 money as well, threatening that council chamber space, putting him into a good position to vault into maybe a swordsman if he can get a couple extra coins as well. Oh, looks like we got multiple pocket cams here. That's fun. Is Allan rolling back his turn? Undeciding? Oh, they're just... Looks like he passed the card without using the ring to take something, and they're debating whether they're going to allow for it or not. I mean, he passed the card. It's kind of one of the like core tenets of the game structure is, if you pass, your turn is over. So they're all trying to figure out, I think, if this is a must or a may condition. Yeah, this looks like a tense judge call. I see some conversation amongst the players at the table. I don't know what this conversation is. I obviously don't know what the ultimate decision is going to be here. Here, my face is blocking James again. But I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, okay, they give it to him. That is a gracious choice. I don't think they have to make that choice given that we're playing at this kind of competitive level. It is the choice that I would make if I was a player at that table, like allowing the player to kind of like redo it. But that's just me. So Allan decides not to burn anything. He instead takes a card that he thinks he'll be able to use. And if I remember Smuggler's Thopter correctly, that is, let me Google Smuggler's Thopter. That he wants that card that has other Spacing Guild stuff on it. Let's see if I'm right. Smuggler's Thopter. Let's see if I can. Nope. The Corrupt Smuggler. There we go. To influence. Okay, so he needs influence in the Spacing Guild, which the guild administrator will help him get. So that's a process that he needs to go for that Smuggler's Thopter. It's not playing another red card. It's too many different cards that support each other. I started also playing Uprising, so I'm getting a lot of my wires crossed here. Great. We have a ring play. So lots of ring plays in the second round here. Didn't necessarily get them in the first round, although actually in James's case, it's because he cycled through his deck, given Ilban's essentially like rapid draw system. And then he used it to head, where did we go? Red. Oh, he picked up the 2 spice. Yeah, that's a nice, easy get. I have to assume that means he's not necessarily holding Dunes in his hand that he's unhappy about, or he has perhaps as his second action a diplomacy thing that he's looking to play out. I don't. He did go on one of the tracks next turn, so he would have had to cycle through the deck for it. So it's not terribly likely, but possible. Jukka here goes surprisingly to the Hall of Oratory rather than spending his money to do anything. He kind of does more of a pass play. Like, he doesn't have a whole lot going on. We know in his hand, we know that he's holding on to 2 daggers, but I'm really surprised to see that he doesn't use this to pick up the High Council for the extra 2 spending every turn. I think that would be good. Maybe he's really focused on doing Swordsmaster next turn, but he's only got 7 coins. I think that dropping the 5 on the council now would have been the way to go. So I'll be curious to see what he does from here, but I can't help but feel like that's a little bit of a mistake, focusing on that swordsman over just the High Council, which is pretty good in base game. At least that's what I keep getting told. All right, looks like we have a Seek Allies here from the Beast. Joon's Beast heads into Fremen territory, pushes a couple more troops out there. There's not a lot of fight left. He does have people behind him that are going to get to make a choice here. We're going to get a Seek Allies from Allan, who's going to move into that spacing track just the way that we kind of talked about. He's sort of playing an orthogonal game from everyone else. I think that it is important to note that like his orthogonal gameplay here in most games, doing the thing that the other players aren't doing is the best. And Dune, though, it's really important to pressure kind of the primary points of the game. I do think that Allan's game, he's not worried about getting blocked, right? He's doing things that other players are not as interested in, but they are less powerful than other players' initial starts here, I think. James here is last, and we don't see any Mentat action out here, so he could pick up a Mentat. I do see he's holding a couple of those 2 persuasion cards. We've got to Seek Allies here, which is unsurprising as a play. It would be good for him to push some troops out. I mean, he has an easy second place here, but it's an easy victory point if he's able to push out just 2 of those troops. So I can't help but wonder if they're, I don't know what he has in his hand. We'll see when he does the reveal, but like pushing out one of the blue cards and just shoving a couple extra troops here to grab a free victory point. Not free, but like relatively free victory point might have been the way to go. It does feel bad to not play your Seek allies. Like you kind of want to get it out of your deck sooner rather than later. But at the same time, he could still use it in a later turn. It depends on his persuasion, right? Like if he has any extra persuasion at the end of the turn, I do wonder about skipping out on the victory point here, because the spice for second place is a pretty lame consolation prize in comparison. Jukka here has 5 cash to pick up the carryall. Not the most exciting pickup using the Hall of Oratory there. It's okay, but I don't know. Duncan's not amazing, but I wouldn't mind taking Duncan over carryall if he'd done something else with his green. If he had done instead the Council Hall, he would have had 6. 6 doesn't necessarily help him any more than the Hall of Oratory, but I stand by. I think the Council Hall might have been the way to go. I see Allan's doing a splay of the discard pile here. So Joon is... I guess they've maybe decided that they're playing open discard pile. My understanding is that usually they don't play open discard piles, because I guess Joon is maybe looking at like how much persuasion Allan has or something like that. I don't know. Joon being very, very deliberate here, which is super appropriate for a final. But I don't think he has any real choice here except for to reveal. I guess he does have an intrigue card. He might have one of those like bounce a guy and take another action here that he's considering. If I am one of the other players at the table, that is definitely what I'm looking at. Oh, did he only play 1? Oh, he has a swordsman. I'm so dumb. Of course, he has a swordsman. He's another action. So he is going to head to the Fremen track here and be able to push more troops in play, which is not valuable. He's already winning. He pushes 1 to be safe, being concerned about, I'm not quite sure what. Does James even have an intrigue card? He did pick up an intrigue card. So he's giving himself basically protection against any play of James's. But I don't know, baiting those intrigue cards out of people's hands is not, there's James didn't know that he had that when he drew on his previous turn, right? It wasn't like James played leaving one guy out there with the plan that he would be able to like steal the battle away. So I think he just has 1. If he has 2, and I'm forgetting that he has 1 from last turn, that does make a mild difference. But I think I would have tried to greed and keep the troop behind. But I might have... I guess he didn't have other options of space. Oh, he could have gone to the Emperor track. I think I would have gone to the Emperor track and picked up 2 coins if I was Joon, rather than head to the Fremen track. A pickup of Shifting Allegiances here. Was that a pickup by Allan? Or no? What's going on here? I'm playing catch up. My guess is that James just picked it up really quickly after Allan picked up the Administrator for pretty discounted, because yeah, Allan's looking not too wealthy over there with a dagger as the top of those 3 reveal cards. So I think that James picked up the Shifting Allegiances. Shifting Allegiances is amazing, so that's a really, really great get for him. It definitely feels like one of the more like undercosted cards for their persuasion. And he's got the 2 spice to make use of it. It's really cool because it kind of lets you like re-trigger powers or steal things from players kind of out of nowhere, or manage your track alliances. So pretty nice get there for him. And we see that Joon wins this conflict, putting him into first place after his friendship with the Fremen is established. Clean up. We're going to go into the third turn where Joon is going to lead. I'll point out that he has, it looks like 3 coins, and if he had picked up those 2 coins from the Emperor, he'd be able to lead High Council right here, which would put both Jukka and Allan in a jam of needing to get coins for Swordmaster and be competing with each other. So yet another reason that I think Jukka's holding on to the coins for subsequent Swordmaster was maybe a bit risky. Going to the bottom of the pile when you're in second seat in turn order gets very, very dangerous when we're talking third turn order here. So I'm going to keep harping on that decision, but I do think it was a mistake there. Fortunately for all of them, Joon did not go with the get 2 coins from the Emperor thing, so he actually can't High Council right now. So that is somewhat beside the point. We're starting to see some of the crap fill up the track up there, as we have Scout, I think it is, and like Sardaukar Infantry, which are both on the much weaker side of cards. They'll probably see those sit on there for the rest of the game. Thanks to the way that James is holding his cards, we're able to see that he has a pair of daggers, which is not the most exciting, of course, but as Ilban, probably he'll use his 2 coins and one of those daggers to snap that Mentat up. This is something that Joon should consider. If he's not going to be spending his coins on High Council, or getting coins for High Council, he should consider whether he wants to do Mentat. If the players let Ilban run away with just tons and tons of Mentat actions, it gets really dangerous. I'd say so far, I think that Joon is in the leading position. I don't agree with all of his choices from last turn, but that very quick get to Swordsmaster is pretty exciting. He draws into his space travel, so he says, well, I don't want to get blocked from this spot. It's probably a little bit of a bummer for Allan, who has a good chance of wanting to have headed there so he could get his Smuggler's Thopter online, and grabs himself a fold space to give himself some future flexibility there. Given that Allan goes straight into thinking mode, I can't help but wonder that that was indeed his starting plan. I think that if I'm in his position right now, what I would do is I'd go to get some money, because he can get a Swordmaster right now. Yuka's holding on to 7 coins, so he's not going to do it. A turn 3 Swordmaster is pretty good. That juicy Kwisatz up there is not going to get grabbed by anybody soon, but actually one side of James's kind of Ilban plays, we know that he's got a Peter in his deck. We know that he has the capacity to draw lots of cards. So it might turn out that James is going to be the one who gets Kwisatz if that sticks around for quite a while. Oh, is Peter in hand? That's maybe the second card there is Peter. Sure is. And then we see for Allan, oh yeah, there's that Administrator. The Administrator can take a yellow action, so he might be looking at playing this. Although, does he have a discard pile? He might not have anything to trash just yet, but it is awfully hard to, not grab those 3 coins when he knows what they can do with them. And it looks like he's going to trash a dagger straight out of hand, cleaning up his deck a little bit, which I am in favor of. Not the most efficient use. Obviously, you want to trash something out of the discard pile, but he actually doesn't go for the coins. Fascinatingly enough, he says 3 spice looks pretty good to me, which it is, and he can put a couple troops into this battle. This is one of the siege battles, and even if he loses a couple coins, still at the stage of the game where coins are pretty good. So I would expect a full push of 2 guys here, but it is a little scary to do that early in the turn. So I could see him being nervous about it. He's, like I said, he's the Azul champion, so I wouldn't be surprised if Allan's kind of more sort of like conservative control of the game puts him in a little bit of an awkward position with making these decisions. You see that he goes in with just 1, kind of the more, I'll take something, but I don't want to be committed. Whereas I do think that sometimes aggressive pushes in this game are rewarded. That being said, sometimes they're not rewarded. So it's tough to tell whether 1 or 2 are correct, but I would go for 2. But I also would have gone for the 3 coins and picked up the Swordsmaster there with the ring that he has in hand. So all sorts of bifurcating decisions along the way here. I don't think he needs those 3 spice imminently. The most powerful thing he can do with the 3 spice right now is turn it into more coins, but he's already got a good chunk of coins. So James is going to go for a full card draw. He's going to see if he can get probably up to Kwisatz this turn by ripping a couple cards off of his deck and seeing along with Peter, we can do something about that. Again, a little bit awkward that we are dusting a card out of hand. It is a dagger, and it looks like we're going to trigger a reshuffle here. Now, the really awkward thing about triggering a reshuffle here is that he is holding, I think we saw in hand, or in play, of course, a Diplomacy and Peter. So triggering this reshuffle here, these cards suddenly are going to go essentially into the next shuffle of this deck. This might be a round where I would have considered not drawing into cards. If he can get Kwisatz, it's probably worth it. But if he misses getting Kwisatz and he re-triggered a shuffle with Diplomacy and Peter in the active hand, I do think that's going to really come back to haunt him. Jukka says, well, no one's going to block me on these spaces. I will get the money. I will get the Swordsmaster. And he is not punished for his slow playing of his coins last turn, which is really sweet for him. Conflict still pretty wide open. Joon is first to act and also last to act currently with the Swordsmaster, but since it is quite likely that Jukka is picking up a Swordsmaster, actually Jukka is going to be last to act this turn, which does make a bit of a difference. But Joon will get second to last action, which is pretty helpful. See him considering his options here. Doesn't feel like the players are moving terribly slow. I mean, like I said, we are playing at that plus 25% speed here, but still the game has been moving. I'm playing catch up all the time. And we've got a dagger come out here for Joon. He just goes to the boring Hall of Oratory action. That feels a little bit like a pass, if I'm being honest. It's not a big commitment to anything. I don't get the feeling like that persuasion is going to make a huge difference for him. Yeah, that is interesting. I think that in his position in a vacuum, without knowing his hands, I would be looking to do the Mentat action. Take those coins, be the person who's going to go last this turn with my 4 actions, even with Jukka there, and then he can decide whether he wants to come in and snipe this battle, if he has the option to do that. Because everyone else is seems to be really focused on the infrastructure side of the game. I don't know if James is tired. He did stay up really late studying to beat me in Terraforming Mars, but he is either depressed or very sleepy. With his body language right there. Oh, or very contemplative. I see. Now it's a furrowed brow. I understand. All right. Looks like we've got Helena is going to make a claim on Duncan. Duncan is fine. I think he looks really good on paper, but I've definitely come to learn that he's not that exciting. And we see a pickup of Council, which is really good for Helena. Now, using a Council to pick up a Duncan at the beginning, not the most exciting. Imperial Spy flips up. I like Imperial Spy. It's a card that trashes itself for an intrigue card, so there's something pretty cool about that. I think that it does its job of working your way up the Emperor track. And, Allan's got 3 spice, which isn't quite enough to conspire, but getting towards conspiracy. I'm trying to count how much money persuasion James has in hand. 3, 1 for the ring. I think that's 2 for the council hall. 3, 4, 5, 6. Is it 7 with a Dune there? I think I'm counting 7. It's a little tough to tell. I need like a CSI level enhance on what we have going on here. The fact that the Hall of Oratory was taken probably limits his options in that way. But if he can early pass here, if he has 8, he doesn't. He needed that dagger to go to the Hall of Oratory. If Joon Galaxy brained and said, well, if he's got 1, and so I'm going to go to the Hall of Oratory so he can't get to 8, that would be truly impressive. So maybe I should rub some respect on Joon's name for that. But looks like we're going to have Ilban instead go and do a Mentat, right? Like, if you're looking to get to 8, drawing 2 cards off the top right here is going to do that. Here we go. Doing Ilban things. He doesn't do it. He does it with the dagger, which is not helping him. Not with the signet ring, which would give him a coin, because he really wants to get to that 8 persuasion. He flipped his hand and very quickly looked back down again. So I don't know if he must have seen what he was or was not looking for in that moment. Jukka will grab the aforementioned Swordmaster with the dagger, upgrading to a much longer steel blade. And Joon's going to do a little pass here. We've got 4, 5, 6. Oh! He does have 8 with the Hall of Oratory. Wow. Okay, I was wrong about that. So the draw off of, what did he have? Blue. Or no, he's green. How did he have 4 cards in hand after Swordsman? Oh, is it early pass? He didn't put all three of his guys in play. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. James looking real depressed right there. Yeah, Kwisatz for Joon is going to put him miles ahead. And this is where we're going to ask the question of like whether Allan was supposed to hate the Kwisatz out of the game, right? Where did he get an extra card from? Green, green, green. Fold space? No. Oh, space travel, of course. I drew an extra card. So space travel, drawing an extra card off the deck made the difference. Wow, so a really nice cluster of things. That's a very, very spicy sequence there for Joon. Allan is going to take the test, the Bene Gesserit test, off the deck here, which is a better pickup probably than Duncan. And he agrees, even despite the discount. So, yeah, painful sequence for the other players. James is going to get at least some compensation here with a Worm Riders, and we're taking a break. Okay, well, I'm going to pause and come back to it. All right, well, it's a good thing that I paused because they were taking a break. All right, so James here with the Mentat has an action left. Jukka here has an action left. Joon does not have the third worker because he's actually done the early pass to grab up the Kwisatz, which is great choice on his part. And so now it's like, well, can I use Peter instead to get an intrigue card, which is exactly what we land on as an answer here. Hopefully we still have 6 in hand for Worm Riders, because that is a pretty good get, even though James has not moved up on the Fremen track at all. Where did he go? I would say he goes out to Carthag and should do, I think, a full push here. Maybe he can greed 2. I don't think that Allan does have an intrigue card, and he's had it for quite a long time. I think in this instance, I would push 3. It's kind of the same as the decision that I was talking about last turn, but I think that winning this one is a little bit better. Having the flag is a nice little Benny. Although he's not upset about getting 4 coins either. He's pretty bad at coins, and he is Ilban, so he wants those money over and over again. So actually, I like the 2 push more now that he's landed on 2. If something sneaky happens and he gets 4 coins, he is probably one of the best leaders to take coins as a consolation prize no matter what. He debates about it for a second, says, you know what, I'll push all 3 in. I don't want Jukka to get cheeky with his last action. And Jukka will use his last action with the carry-all to grab a simple spice that is going to double up thanks to the carry-all's perk. But, you know, passing with the carry-all would have given that extra spice as well. So, not the most riveting carry-all use along the way. And he says, I'll slip in, see if I can get myself a couple free coins, be it 2 or 4, depending on how many daggers we've got. This is an auto pass here around the table. Actually, back to James, who's going to do his reveal. Now we get to see 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So he does have enough for the Worm Riders with Peter there. So he went for the Mentat for the overkill. Pretty brutal sequence for him, but just wasn't fast enough. That turn order thing makes a really big difference in these games. And obviously, Joon drew into, you know, a sexy pile of stuff. He drew all of his 2s in the same hand. It's like not that common. So I do think that it was. I do have some bad feels for James, but it's okay. He used all of his luck in our preceding semifinal, so I can't feel too bad for him. Joon's on fire with the luck today, though. He I said he was the Wingspan winner, and that's not actually true. He told me he was a Wingspan expert. It was the game that he thought he was going to win. What he won was Castles of Burgundy, and then he was assigned in the semifinals to Wingspan. So that's where I was getting my wires crossed. But yeah, clearly diversely skilled gamer who maybe downplays his skills a little bit. Which, you know, I find that a lot of people at this event are going out of their way to downplay their skills, thinking that people will not treat them as a threat, which is, you know, a mistake for everybody. Jukka leaning back into a super pensive casual position here as he is debating his reveal. He's got, it looks like, $2 on the Dune. So he could do something like the Imperial Spy. He could just pick up the base 2. He could go with the Smugglers up there. Smugglers are kind of an interesting option for him. He's got the carry-all, which is going to give him spice, and then he could actually just get the points for the friendship with the Spacing Guild without ever taking the Spacing Guild action, just by smuggling some spice their way. And he says, yeah, I'll go for it. Sounds good. He's going to have a little bit of a glut of coins, but, the Baron does use coins along the way. He also, still doesn't have access to Council Hall and might be able to pick up a Mentat here or there. So I do think he's a capacity to use those coins throughout the course of the game. But as he starts smuggling, it's something he's going to have to pay attention to. Problem with the smugglers is they have that issue of they can only take the blue actions. However, Jukka is close on the Fremen, which is going to open up his blue action spaces in the middle, as he can go to the Siege Tabor. Tabor? Siege Tabor? Should go back and watch the movie again. I think that's pretty much going to lead us to the end of the round here. And Allan and Jukka are just going to both get 2 coins, I think. They're just tied at 2 here. No one has an additional dagger to put them over the edge, so some coins wasted along the way, which James and Joon are not upset to see at all. And the battle for one of them, Arrakis, right? Is it? I think it's Carthage or Arrakis. I don't remember which one is which. It looks like Arrakis from the super tiny text in play is going to be claimed by James. James moves up to 3 victory points. I think that Joon is a mile ahead of the other players at this stage in the game. Mile is too dramatic, but he's got Kwisatz Haderach. He's got space travel for cycling some card draw in his deck to get him to his Kwisatz Haderach. He's got 3 swordsmen. So he's going to be taking a lot more actions than the other players. He has the most victory points right now, thanks to the fact that he has one friendship with a Fremen, as well as a battle that's won. He's holding an intrigue card in hand. I think Allan is probably in the worst position in this game. He hasn't really done anything too exciting. He's picked up a couple of mediocre cards and is setting up for a Smuggler's Thopter. He does at least have the Council Hall there, which I do think is going to make a difference for him. But it's not quite at the same level as what's going on with the other players. Jukka is doing well enough. He has won a battle for a victory point. So he's got some flex there. He's only advanced on one of the tracks so far, though, so he's a little bit behind on his friendships, but he does have a Swordsmaster. And then James has, on average, probably the best card quality in his deck and Ilban's power to kind of cycle through, but he is behind in terms of the infrastructure. Doesn't have a swordsman, doesn't have a council, doesn't have the coins for either of those things right now either. It's kind of the Ilban trap. I think actually Ilban is never really supposed to buy a Swordsmaster. You just mentat your way into having 3 actions throughout most of the game. But he does want to have access to some more coins, and it definitely hurt the way that things went down for him throughout the course of the game. We see he's got a Shifting Allegiances in hand there, and looks like he's a little bit short on spice right now, so he might need to pick some up if he's planning on using that. Spice is a little bit sparse right now. Water's a little bit sparse right now because we haven't really had rewards that kind of put those things up. And then we see a Siege of Carthage is the battle for this turn. I think it is Arrakis. I was right the last turn. Hooray me. And we're going to see Allan lead out here with a Still Suits. Just picking up some water. Is he once again going to push a guy into the field? Looks like the single guy right there. Yep. This is a battle that doesn't feel so great to get third in. A single spice, I think, is worse probably than the 2 coins. So hopefully there's some follow-up there. But really, people are short on troops, with the exception of our lead threat here, Joon. Okay, so maybe we actually do have 2 spice and I can't see. Okay, or we'll make 2 spice. That's the way of doing it. We'll go straight into the Great Flats, Salt Flats, something like that. Pick up 4 spice. Maybe push this guy into the middle, and we're going to shift some allegiances. So I'd be curious to see where he goes here. I think he's probably going to move down on the Bene Gesserit, because there's a good chance he'll want to go back there. But maybe he wants to stay on Bene Gesserit. Actually, he should go down on Emperor and up on Bene Gesserit, go to the top, get that allegiance, get that intrigue card, and then he can use the shifting allegiances in the future to slide back down the Bene Gesserit track and then go back up it again and do some really nasty stuff there. That would be the much more exciting option for him. He costs himself a point, moves up into the Fremen track to open up some options in terms of spaces that he can go on the board, which I don't hate. And he also has Worm Riders, so he's actually very incentive to do the Fremen thing. So my cute Bene Gesserit play is certainly an option, but it does actually make more sense for him to go up Worm Riders, given Worm Riders go up Fremen, given that he has the Worm Riders in hand. He wants to shoot his way up there and make just an absolutely dirty six sword attack on people, unexpected at any given time, popping out of the earth. We see Jukka here listening to me talking about how he's a little bit behind on his friendships and deciding to deal with that problem here. I think probably an entry card. Yeah, a couple coins seems fine too. He's hopefully going to smuggle his way into some more money. He also, of course, has the secret information of like what his master stroke situation is and setting that up. So manipulating exactly where he's going to go on the board, it does matter a little bit based on that. And I think the only place that would have really been wrong for him to go is into the red spot, because he's got Spacing Guild smuggle stuff already. So he wants to be moving up those other tracks to get those points there. Another diplomacy here, as we're going to see Joon is going to commit to this battle. My guess is he's going to push all four in. Absolutely. Grab that victory point, grab that flag, a couple incidental coins later on. And other people do not really have the troops to contest this. I like the really strong, decisive play. It's going to disincentivize other people from doing things, but he is kind of the lead target, but no one else is in a good position to really stop him right now. Even Jukka, who's maybe closest with 2 actions left, doesn't have any troops in base to deal with that. So I'm a big fan of this play by Joon. Strong, assertive, correct. He's also going to try to rush up that Fremen track, get there maybe before James does, which will lead to a second instance of Joon and James conflict that will end in favor of Joon if he has just one more way of moving up the track. That being said, I don't know. Well, Kwisatz Haderach, of course, lets him go anywhere. And but other than that, I think that Joon is a little bit limited on faction access. Oh, he's got a fold space as well. We see Allan fiddling with a fold space in his hand, but Joon also has a fold space. So yeah, fair amount of ways for him to get up that track there before James is going to be able to fire off another Shifting Allegiances. So it does lean pretty heavily into Joon getting that Fremen alliance. But I think James should actually consider trying to steal the alliance from him. Taking the victory point from the person who is leading is very, very valuable. I'm just going to keep moving my face until James and I are not in the same space at the same time. This is actually like this is me like expressing that I wish that I was in this seat, right? Which is why I kind of like keep trying to usurp his space. Instead of a fold space, looks like we're fiddling. Oh no, that is a fold space. I thought we were fiddling with a dagger, but daggers and fold spaces, they look the same. Who can tell the difference, really? Not so sure. I'm not sure quite what it is Allan's debating. I can't quite see his board in this moment. He doesn't have a ton of cash because he spent it on the council last turn. I could see him picking up another Smuggler's Thopter this turn. That would be pretty hilarious, just going all in on this. So if he does, he could fold space into a fold space and then just go like maximum Smuggler Thoptering. I think that might be an exciting way to turn a mediocre deck into an exciting deck, but he wants to see something right now. So he's actually going to spend 2 coins. He's going to trash something else. He's trashing his dagger. So he is playing the deck building game. Both of the daggers have been trashed out of his deck, and looks like he goes for a draw, but he doesn't have anything, so he's going to reshuffle his deck. I think that he's got mostly his good cards in his discard pile right now, so I'm not sure what else is. I didn't see what else was in his hand or wasn't paying much attention, so probably a good time to trigger that. But at the same time, if he's playing fold space, he didn't really have a choice anyway, so it's less of a like deliberate thing there, maybe. Do you think it's an intentional design choice by the films for the Spacing Guild ships to look exactly the same as Sandworms? I didn't realize it until watching this video, but they are eerily similar looking. All right, we've got James here. Ooh, he is going to lead with a draw a card intrigue. I don't know what the rest of the text on that card is. I know there's like 1 or 2 ways to draw a card. I think it's maybe the one that's like you can draw it or trash it. He's decided to draw it. Maybe it's also his whole turn, so he can kind of delay a little bit. You may pass your turn instead of taking. Okay, yeah. Okay, so this is not the. It is the pass your turn. He says, "Yep, I want to see what other people do. I'm gonna come in later." That's interesting. I don't think he's coming into the battle, so I don't know what it is that he is delaying for. We have here a bankers, which is going to allow Jukka to use that pile of cash that he picked up from the Emperor to restock his army here. Probably not quite enough to fight Joon, even though he's got, like, he doesn't have a way to deploy them, but sets him up for some conflicting next turn, which is great. I think, though, unless there's something really deliberate you want to do with it this turn, I would wonder if, like, maybe going to... Yeah, I wonder if, like, using the guild bankers to have gone to the Emperor and using the diplomacy to go to, like, the Bene Gesserit. I think missing out on using guild bankers for that faction access is maybe a bit of a mistake. There's a lot of value in getting those half of victory points by moving up those spots. Obviously, if the game goes longer and longer, they might not end up being half victory points, but I think it's a lot to give up in a game where you're looking to score 10. Half a victory point is 5% of the way to victory. And any card, you know, Jukka is still holding daggers, right? Any card would allow him to, not any card, but many of the cards would allow him to go up and rally those troops. So maybe he's got like one of those intrigue cards that's going to allow him to like send a bunch of surprise troops into battle. But this isn't a must-win battle. I mean, stopping Joon is a nice bonus here, but it isn't a must-win battle. Signet ring. Let's give James $1. And he says, no, I'm pretty confident. Interesting that he draws an extra card here rather than going to Carthag for the intrigue. That's going to trigger a reshuffle. Oh, he's reshuffling his deck, which essentially means that all the cards he's played this turn and next turn, or this turn and in hand, are not going to clog up the deck for the Kwisatz. So he's drawing much more quickly to his Kwisatz. Unfortunately, it does mean he's going to miss out on his ring and his diplomacy card next turn. This is a decision point that I don't know what the right call is. Like, it is definitely correct to accelerate the Kwisatz, but at the expense of 2 of the other really important cards in his deck to play, rather than picking up an intrigue card. That's tough. That's a tough call. What is this? 1, 2... Oh, is this a Spice Must Flow? Ooh, okay. He's going straight for the point. Respect. I feel like you do kind of got to grab a point when you can grab a point. So I don't mind that. But I did really want the double Smuggler Thopter action. It's followed up by kind of like a mysterious, like, what do I play next? So I can respect that doesn't feel like a good use of all that persuasion. So probably the Spice Must Flow is the right pickup here. We're going to see Peter getting some more intrigue. Just piles and piles of intrigue. Drawing into some cool game plan. Looks like we got some kind of violence-y thing and then something with very short text that I'm just going to make up and say it's a card that allows you to return a worker. He's going to play it immediately. Can you play an intrigue card immediately? Oh, this is a draw or trash. Looks like he drew into Worm Riders. He's debating whether he's trashing it for too long, so a little bit of a bluff here. But that Worm Riders is going to be absolutely useless because he doesn't have another action left. I'm curious why he chose to draw a card right now. Oh, he can push out. He could push out because of the thing that he is. So actually, I'm totally wrong here. That Worm Rider says all of a sudden you're a very, very serious contest. He has now also 8 to James's 8 or Joon's 8. Which is nice. So Apologies, James, for my misread of that line there. That works out really nicely, drawing in that order. I did forget that he had headed up to Carthage for the pushing in people. In general, this is why executing your actions and then deciding the push is the correct way to go, by the way. Looks like we're going to get 5 persuasion here from Jukka. I could see a smuggler's thopter pickup here just because it's a pricier one, but he's got a little ways to go before he's able to use it for the draw 2 cards. So maybe an Imperial Spy, see what you flip, and then just kind of buy a normal like liaison. He says, I'll just go for the Imperial Spy. I don't want to do all the work for the Smuggler's Thopter that I haven't started just yet. Is it not an immediate flip? I thought it was. Lady Jessica off the top. Everyone checks how much money they have in hand immediately. And I see Allan putting his head in his hands. The disadvantage of going first here is that he's first to pass, right? So he didn't have the opportunity to see that flip off the top. Joon has a swordsman, so he's got a 3rd assignable worker here. The battle maybe looks a little bit more nerve-wracking. We do know that Count Ilban here has access to Worm Riders, but he's got a couple extra coins. We're going to draw some cards and have yet another action with our dagger here. Just pretty much the only way to use that dagger, but giving up the dagger for that central fight may end up costing a little bit more than it gains. So I'll be curious to see what we see from Joon on the flip turn. But this is actually a turn where dagger might really end up being pretty helpful. And we get a flip here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A missed signet ring, so $1 missing there. And we're going to go and tie up. So if Joon has even 1 dagger in hand, he's going to end up winning it. 5's not quite enough to buy anything. James says, I'm a little bit behind, or I want to do the Fremen action, so I'm going to go ahead and buy this. And we flip a not too exciting assassin drone thingy, poison snooper, I don't know, whatever they're called. I know all the words. I feel like my mom trying to describe a television show where she just describes things out of order with all the nouns, but not necessarily the connecting pieces. Joon here really deliberating. This is pretty interesting in the sense that I mean, I guess he has another action here, but he must have a lot of options. And what we're seeing on the board is not a ton of options left. He could get with yellow some coins or some spice with relatively little effort. He might want to push an extra troop into play. So actually, if he does have a yellow and doesn't have a dagger in hand, he might commit to that additional troop out there. He might be looking and saying, well, I have 7 or close to 7 or something like that. Can I do a Jessica thing? I wouldn't be surprised if he's holding a fold space. I don't remember exactly when he drew it, but it's been a moment. The Bene Gesserit spots to just pick up an intrigue card is like pretty legit here too if he's got some faction access, but the diplomacy's in play, so that's maybe just a pipe dream. I guess a space travel for a fold space seems like it would be correct, but maybe he needs the 2 persuasion for something, so he's debating the Lady Jessica option, something like that. So a couple things that he could be considering here. Again, just really does depend on what he has in hand. Everyone else is out for the round at this stage. Did Jukka reveal with 3? Oh, he didn't get to place his last guy because reconnaissance was his 3rd play. Ooh, so he had very few access points. So actually he needed to play that reconnaissance earlier in the round. Head to Carthage or Arakeen, and he got boxed out of there. That's pretty painful. Yeah, I do think that's a mistake. I mean, again, I mentioned that the guild bankers, I think that the access would have been a little bit more exciting. I can see that he grabbed those troops hoping to be able to push in more troops with his blue action, and then those blue actions got taken. We see the blue actions like not get taken by players that early in the game, but I think that they're better than most of us think that they are. That's definitely the case in Uprising. And so expecting that they're going to wheel around on your third action is pretty risky. That's pretty painful for Jukka. Yeah, I think this was a rough turn for him. He kind of just like set up infrastructure but developed no positions. James, again, either very contemplative or depressed or just sleepy. And so Joon ends up, what did he end up doing? I was busy chit-chatting and didn't see where he placed. He does not play the space travel. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that 4 persuasion there? What did he do? Where did you go? Where's the Mentat? Oh, okay. So he did go, it looks like he went to take a Bene Gesserit action. I'm just trying to figure out how he did it because it looks like he played a dagger. Maybe he did that intrigue that allowed the card to have any of the icons or whatever. Interesting that he didn't choose to trigger the space travel. It's not bad if he draws Kwisatz, right? Because he could play it afterwards, so it's not like he has to worry about drawing into good things in his deck. James says, I've got the intrigue card. I'm going to take the victory point here. Absolutely worth that intrigue upgrade. And these Worm Riders and an intrigue card out of nowhere are going to take this point away from Joon. The other players are a little bit disappointed to see James with that intrigue card in hand. If both of the players had no combat intrigue cards and they tied it here, neither would have gotten the point, which would really been the ideal for the other players. Card for Joon. So I think at this stage, I would interpret Jukka. I thought he was in a fine-ish position coming into this turn, but I think this was a pretty awkward turn for him. He is hopefully able to get his way into some conflicts, some easy wins as the only person with guys in garrison right now, maybe in the subsequent turns. So that could potentially help. Allan's turned his mediocre deck into a more mediocre deck with the Spice Must Flow, but at least he's keeping up in points there. I'm quite worried about Allan's position in this game. And then James looks like he's holding on to 6 spice, if that's the big chunky spice. So a lot of spice, but he's, again, behind on the infrastructure, but he's doing the best on points. It's got that shifting allegiances, so some flexibility to do some nasty stuff there. And I think it is pretty clear that Joon is still leading here. Having played through this round, he didn't get the victory point from the combat, which definitely mattered, but he is advancing on sort of the different tracks. He's, space away on the Spacing Guild, a space away on Bene Gesserit, space away on the Fremen Guild from getting additional points. So I am pretty comfortable in saying I still think he's in the leading position. Draw deck wise, I don't know if Joon has a discard pile here, but it looks like he drew out his deck. And so therefore probably everything is in his discard pile, and he's holding a Kwisatz in hand, but he's going to draw cards. So he's going to trigger a deck reshuffle, which is going to work very awkwardly. So that thing that he did last turn about drawing more cards is going to ultimately end up sort of backfiring, in that he's going to recycle his deck before he gets to put Kwisatz back into the discard pile. So that's the kind of thing that is, I think, a little bit harder to count out. But knowing that he was reshuffling the deck last turn, I said I wasn't sure if it was right to do it with the Signet Ring and the Diplomacy. I obviously had the hindsight 2020 here, but I think knowing how many cards he was going to be able to draw into, I think now we can comfortably say that it was a mistake for him. So a little bit of a stumble there that will slow him down, much needed by the other players as we're moving forward. The beginning of turn 5? Yeah, must be. So we're looking at James going first. So, fast games of this are going to end on turn 7. Turn 8 is pretty reasonable for lots of games. I have seen a lot of these end on turn 9 when we're talking about players who are good. of this caliber, but not as experienced in the Dune world as actual Dune players. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a 9-round game here. While I was thinking about it, actually, I'm going to take a very, very quick break. All right, back at it. Let's see what we've got in James's hand. We're pulling out a diplomacy, getting an early crack at our options here, and drew an intrigue card and got a victory point. Oh, we're doing a conspire action. Oh, we had a little like blippo here. Okay, so we knew that he had a whole pile of spice, which could either be highliner or conspire. And looks like he says, I like the conspire idea. He needs all the cash. He hasn't set up any of the situations. He wants to be firing off that mentat over and over again. I really like conspire for him. Victory point as he moves his way up the emperor track there, which is a nice, good get for him. Jukka very quickly snaps off his play, which was getting some spice from one of those basins and pushing a couple troops into this battle. This is a battle where even the consolation prizes of a couple of water allow for some good flexibility in the future. So a nice push of the 2 troops there. I agree with that call. And looks like we're having just all the battles for all the places. Maybe this is the Imperial Basin and the other one's the Haga Basin. That sounds right. Ooh, I don't think I noticed that the end of last turn, maybe the last purchase, flipped a Liet Kynes, which is an absolutely amazing card. No one really has much of the infrastructure for it. I don't think a lot of people have like just bought a bunch of liaisons or anything, but she can do some really, really nasty things. It's a little bit hard to build around her turn 5 going forward, but I think even just the like pickup and the free movement on the Fremen track is like well worth it alone. So we're gonna see some rush perhaps to grab that, and of course Lady Jessica still available in play. Not as exciting buying at turn 5, but I think still exciting enough for sure. She comes with a half a victory point, so I like that buy over the Sandworm maybe at this point. It's a tough call. If you had 9, I'm actually not sure if it's right to buy Lady Jessica or the Sandworm. My instinct is Jessica, but it's getting pretty close to the point in the game where you're supposed to just pivot into victory points. Not quite there yet, I think, though. Arrakis Liaison allows Joon to grab Siege Tabur and get some water, which will give him access to Haga Basin. No one else has access to Haga Basin right now. And gets a couple troops, which he says, you know what, I'm probably not going to be involved in this fight. A little bit surprised to see that he doesn't push a troop out there if he's planning on going to Haga Basin next as well. Test of Humanity will advance Allan up the track here. He's going to spend some more spice to continue calling his deck. He's going to make the skinniest, leanest deck there is. So I kept calling his deck mediocre, but I actually have forgotten all the trashing that he's done. So everything in his deck there's nothing bad left, essentially. So actually his deck is pretty good. And Test of Humanity puts a tax on everybody's hand. We see that Jukka discarding 2 Persuasion here. A little bit painful. And I think that can't quite see the corner of Joon's, but that might be a single yellow triangle, so it might be a desert planet that got discarded. And James is either debating the discard or has discarded underneath his camera there and is already debating on his next turn's action. Yeah, Test of Humanity, pretty painful. Okay, so it looks like people debated because we see now Allan drawing the 2 cards off his deck. And sliding up that track there, advancing basically close to the alliance, not friendship. I'll probably use these terms too interchangeably to get the extra victory point for heading up the Bene Gesserit track. Ilban doing Ilban things. He turns some of that freshly conspired money into card draw. Here's another Dune the Desert Planet. 3 coins. A feeling that Jukka again is holding a hand that doesn't give him a lot of options of actions to take, because the 3 coins really doesn't do a whole lot for him. I do want to point out, it looks like James is well ahead on points, 5 to the 3 to the 2. But he has several of his friendship points already kind of locked in, whereas I think other players are sort of are sort of that like half step away. So the scoring, the 2, 3, 5 is a little bit of phantom scoring, because we have like a half a point for yellow, green, blue, a half a point for blue, a half a point for red, green, a half a point for green, a half a point for yellow, a half a point for blue, based on being one step away on each of the tracks towards getting another point. So, if we count up all these half points, I've got an extra point for yellow, an extra point and a half for blue, an extra point for green, and only half a point for red. So I think that does mean that James is still in the lead there, but we'll have Joon go ahead and realize one of those right now. He's probably concerned about James's shifting allegiances after some additional card draw there. And we'll move up to the top of the Fremen track, getting more troops with the water, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him do a bit of a push into the middle there. He did this with the Kwisatz Haderach. So early on says, well, I'll draw the extra card. Here's kind of the unfortunate thing where, right, the Kwisatz is not going to go into the reshuffle. Nothing to be done about that, unfortunately. But the extra card might inform what his final play is. So I do like doing this earlier rather than later. And he's using that Kwisatz to get that faction access that is not really a strength of James's deck right now. He'll also get the water back that he used. Again, allowing him to do the Haga Basin. I could see why he would be tempted not to push all of his troops in right here, worried that maybe Yuka's going to come in after him, but I think pushing the 4 seems right. I think Jukka has communicated a pretty awkward hand here. So even with an extra swordsman available to him, might not be able to do a ton with it. I would go with all 4. Jukka also doesn't have there's no Worm Riders or anything like that. It's going to bring a lot of extra surprise swords into play. Let's go. All right, up to Allan here. He is devoid of resources, if I'm looking at his board correctly. Low on troops. He's manipulated the deck the most. He doesn't have the Worm Rider, doesn't have the spiciest cards, but or the Kwisatz or anything like that. But he's got a deck full of fine, solid cards. He will eventually get the Thopter active and be able to basically draw the whole deck and start turning it into spice turn after turn after turn. By the way, I didn't quite catch what he pitched, but it might have been a Spice Plus Flow was what he pitched to the Bene Gesserit, because he'd already dumped all his daggers, and the Spice Plus Flow, you don't lose the victory point when you dump that card. So it's kind of a deck clogger, and so he may have gotten rid of that, and I didn't see exactly what he got rid of. So that would be my guess in a vacuum. Could also be like a Dune or a Reconnaissance or something like that. Allan lays out his diplomacy. I mean, I would be tempted to get that fold space, but he wants to get some resources, which makes sense because he's got none. So he'll get a victory point for going up the Fremen track and a water. Some of the resources are hidden by his camera, so I can see that he has at least one coin And we can't see the water that he has there. And he says, I'll push in the 1 just in case James doesn't want to get in the mix here. James has 1 more action left here. He doesn't have the water to go to Haga Basin. However, James is incentivized to go to like Carthag or Erkine. So it might be that Allan just wasted a troop to expense James a troop. Oh yeah, actually I'm very wrong about Allan. He's holding on to lots of resources actually. His second water there. We get a flip from James for a Jessica. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He explicitly doesn't put out the Mentat. Maybe he's worried that he's going to get his Jessica sniped again. But Elite Kinds is not a bad consolation prize. I think it would have been... I don't think he needed to early reveal here. I think I would have greeted the ring onto like Carthag or something like that. Then he could consider whether he want to push in troops and mix it up with second and third place here. I actually like probably not pushing in the troops, but getting an extra troop, getting an extra intrigue card seems like it would have been worth. Unless I miscounted his cards, but I do think that he flipped 8. If he flipped only 7, it's fine. I mean, he could also have used the ring to go to the Hall of Oratory and at least get an extra troop. I think that's what I would have done. I would have been greedy here. I don't think that Jessica is so insane at this stage that the consolation prize of Elite Kinds would have been bad. Yuki here uses the dagger. He's broke, so my guess is that he used it to rally again and just put a bunch of troops into play. He's not looking happy. He also might just be tired, but Jukka does not look like he is feeling really good about his position, which makes sense. He's had this really bad faction access. His turns have been essentially dictated by the very limited choices that his cards have provided him. His deck is definitely the crappiest of the decks. Joon here takes just sort of the easy Hall of Oratory action, probably just kind of a way of sliding the dagger out, not too concerned about the battle here. Allan is debating, but I think he's got both of his guys in play, so it is going to be a reveal turn. I suppose he might have an intrigue card that lets him do a bounce or something like that, but... Here we go. 1, 2, 3, it's like a 5-ish? I don't know exactly Smuggler, Thopter, and Guild Administrator off the top of my head. Pretty interesting where Allan's got a situation where he has like too many cards to play, right? Like he played both of his faction access cards for those points, which I like. But you know, a different version of this turn is like he plays Guild Administrator, trashes whatever he trashed with the Bene Gesserit thing, and then plays Smuggler's Thopter and draws extra cards, right? That is a version of this turn. And I don't think it would be quite enough to draw him into like buying another Spice Must Flow or something like that. But it is interesting that he's actually at this stage where he's cleared out all the chaff in his deck. So as he's drawing into his medium or better cards, he's going to have to choose essentially every time which ones he is going to wind up playing. You know, missing out on ring things and stuff like that. If he has 5, I think he should buy the Elite Kinds. It's ends up being a little bit of a dud with the fact that he's advanced already twice on the Fremen track. But leaving it to someone else doesn't feel too great. And suddenly that consolation prize goes away. We put Stilgar out, which is decent. If anyone's able to take advantage of drawing a bunch of cards in their deck, you know, they're kind of small deck, it is Allan. I just don't think he has any other Ephemeron cards to go with it right now. So he's going to have to build support around it going forward into the future. Just awkward. It's probably just going to be a fine role player card going into the future. Did he... Oh, it's an Emperor track move, not a Fremen track move. Yeah, there we go. It's actually even better for him. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 4 or 6 or something. Or he has a Hall of Oratory, so he picks up the Stilgar. So it looks like if James had not grabbed the Jessica, Allan would have grabbed the Jessica, and then James would have been stuck with the Leokines. But I still don't think that would have been so bad. I don't know. It's a tough call. I think taking the Leokines would have been fine for James in comparison to taking Jessica. I think they serve very, very similar purposes for him. I think he did use Jessica to move up onto the third space of the track, pretty obviously threatening the shifting allegiances to steal the Fremen alliance from Joon. I guess maybe he's valuing that with the Jessica, right? Whereas the Leokines would move him up on the Emperor track. Yeah, I can see it. All right, headed into turn 6. Jukka is way behind on victory points here, with only 2 half steps on the tracks compared to the other players. So his faction access is just absolutely killing him this game. Doesn't have the right cards to let him go to various places. Allan is proving my sort of early prognostication about being worried about his opinion, his position wrong, in the sense that he has filtered his deck down to a deck that's going to turn into buying Spice Most Flows, I think, going forward every turn. And he's a point away from, or a step away from the Bene Gesserit allegiance. It's not going to get alliance, which is not going to get taken from him. Friendship with the Emperor, friendship with the Spacing Guild, just 3 points. That puts him up to 7. So he's definitely getting into threat territory. Joon, awkwardly, the Kwisatz being shuffled back into the deck means it's not going to be firing off this turn, but he's got 2 half steps to more victory points, so he's looking at 7. James here is looking at a half step to victory point, shifting allegiances to steal a victory point from Joon. So I think the 2 of them competing at the top is going to work out really nicely for Allan, and then hopefully give Jukka enough time to play a little bit of catch up here. He's going to do a nice carry-all action here that's going to give him an absolute pile of spice, which is going to let him do some Highliner nonsense in the future. I think it's 2 extra here, plus double from the Highliner is going to be a total of 6 spice pickup. Basically just a one-and-done Highliner prep action here. Pretty sweet. The Highliner loop is Jukka's kind of main thing. The carry-all, if he's able to like take those water, cycle through the deck, and then carry all back into the Great Salt Flat or whatever it is, then he can just pick up a huge amount of spice again and kind of repeat this process over and over again. As long, of course, he can draw the access to the right places at the right time. Jukka's one big advantage here is he does have a pile of troops. He only chooses to push 1 out in this fight. It's not a super exciting fight. He doesn't love to see that. The end of round phase 2, conflicts 2, sees one of the least exciting conflicts that you can, just kind of some spice and then an intrigue card. This is not a turn that's really worth fighting for anything, so leaving those troops behind is maybe fine. Although I think that if he pushed in 2, he'd basically scare everyone else away. Like, what's really the point in fighting crazy for it? So I think pushing in 1 does bait other people into coming in and essentially guarantees yourself a second place. Whereas if you push in 2, other people might be a bit more wary and want to save their troops for the big conflicts going forward as well. So I do think it would have been worth a second push in. Another siege action here from Joon, who's been the only one who's been to the siege so far. As the Beast, strangely. A little bit of an athematic push there. Then he decides, do I want to get in the mix or not? Can push anywhere from 0 to 3 troops in right now. So he picks up his second water, which he might use to go salt flatting. Great Flats or whatever. He says, all right, I'll take it all. I don't love this. I don't think that winning this conflict is that worth it. Maybe he's holding on to one of those cards that says like kill 3 guys or something like that and lose the fight or something. And we see him walk it back. Debating the cards in hand. I like 2. And this is what I was talking about with, I think, if Jukka had pushed in 2, Joon would either be pushing in 4 or maybe just 1 at this stage. Pushing in 2 into 2 feels really bad. An opening lead here is going to allow Allan to get some not so helpful Fremen points, but he does have water, so maybe he's going to give him some troops that he needs. Oh, actually, he's just using Liet to draw 3 cards off of his deck at the research station with the 2 water. No Fremen for him. He knows that getting those extra Fremen steps is not helpful. So he's setting up for a Spice Must Flow purchase this turn, which makes sense. Allan is kind of essentially slotted into the role of timer in this game. The other players are just playing against his sort of clock because he is just playing the orthogonal strategy. No one can really do that much to stop what he's doing, but his points are not going to be explosive either. All right, I wouldn't be too surprised to see an Ilban Mentat here. He's got coins on hand, and Mentat does all sorts of good Ilban-y things. See him kind of like wavering on reconnaissance there, which is going to probably be a Carthag or an Erkeen situation. Maybe draw a card just to kind of see what he's looking at. Sure. He knows exactly what he was going to draw off his deck, I imagine. And he says, I'll push 1 in. Feels a little funny to push 1 in. It's just kind of like converting a guy into a spice. Just like maybe not that great of a ratio. I think it would have been more interesting to push 0 or 3 in. Just kind of say it's not worth kind of this. He's got the Worm Riders. Actually, maybe if he's holding Worm Riders, it's just kind of like a surprise victory. So pushing 1 in makes sense. Actually, now that I think about it, pushing 1 in at least makes sense because he always has a chance when he mintats to draw into Worm Riders if he doesn't already have it in hand. We see Jukka doing some smuggling with all that great spice that he has. Getting some money. Getting some intrigue. Getting some troops. This is just a generally really good, just a really good action. He does a lot of stuff. He gets a troop, gets a card, gets some money, spends some spice, and then should move up, I believe, on the Spacing Guild track there. Oh, he doesn't. Did I miss something? I see that he now has... Did he not spend the spice? He doesn't have any money. Maybe he chose not to spend the spice? Explicitly doesn't want to spend the spice? Maybe I misread something about that sequence, but that just seems wrong to me. 789 spice? I mean, maybe he wants to just kind of like constantly loop Highliner, but I think that's a mistake. The half step alone is worth it for him. And the 3 coins is not bad. He needs coins for intrigue cards as the Baron. He can like threaten Mentat later. Not a lot of infrastructure in this game, right? We're on turn 6. Only 2 Swordmasters. Only 1 High Council. Yeah, so Jukka pushes in a couple extra guys. I think going up to 3 is correct. At the point where he's at 1, like he should go up to 3. Like the 2 extra guys pushes his opponents down in their kind of victory points there, but it is scary if those Worm Riders show up. I don't know if Joon wants to get embroiled in a longer conflict here, but he says, I'll just go ahead and move up here, get a point for that. I'm not sure why he needs to play this now. Is he drawing another card? Is that why? He's like worried about going past the limit? Not quite. He grabs up a pile of spice, possibly threatening pushing in those more troops. I don't know that it's worth it. And he does that in advance so that he can use the Thopter here to draw into a couple extra cards, which is really, really important as he wants to just cycle through that deck as fast as possible so he can get to that reshuffle and get that Kwisatz in hand. Maybe he has already triggered it. I can't see how big that discard pile is. There it is, and we see the Kwisatz in it. James wanting to check that is indeed the case. Yeah, I guess we are playing open discard piles. And he goes for it, pushes in 2 more troops. Now, at this stage, he does have a little bit more defense against the Worm Riders. But, man, that is a lot of conflict for a pretty bad fight. All right, Guild Administrator here wipes out a Spice Must Flow. So must have been something else that got wiped out last turn. Maybe like a Dune or something like that. And finally, Allan is going to advance in the fold space here and get himself into the Spacing Guild situation, making it so that his Thopter is finally live. Point for blue. Love that for him. James here, I think, he's going to play. We see the Shifting Allegiances. We know that's what he's playing. I think he's about to take away the Fremen one. What he pays for a point is a little bit weirder, though. I think he probably pays his Bene Gesserit movement, but we are definitely seeing the part where it gets a little bit taxing to be doing this Shifting Allegiances thing. It does get annoying. He picks up a couple coins here. I'm surprised to see that he doesn't go for Mentat with this. That was kind of what I was expecting. He's got the coins for it. If he is thinking to himself, I'm tired of not having the swordsman, I think it's too late in the game to care. But the Thief of this point puts him into the lead over Joon. But yeah, I don't think he wants a swordsman at this stage. I think he just wants to be firing Mentat every turn. So it does feel like a missed opportunity. Here we have an Imperial Spy. Jukka pushing his luck with being able to grab an Imperial Spy space. He does have a pile of spice, so maybe he's planning on doing a Conspire action here. So he was looking at Conspire and Highliner, and that's why he didn't want to spend it on the smuggling, perhaps. But he's got a lot of troops already in the garrison. I mean, this is okay, but it's not that exciting. 5 coins here. Yes, hooray, the intrigue card. I still think, suppose that instead he spends the 2 spice on the smuggle, right? So he ends with the same number of coins, right? Because he takes the 2 coins for wealth or whatever it is. So 2 plus 3 makes 5. So he basically spent 2 spice for 2. He spent 2 spice and a step on the Spacing Guild track for 2 workers and an intrigue card. And I don't think that trade is worth it. I don't think that's a correct trade. Especially because his garrison is very full, right? The real question is how he's going to push these guys out. Maybe I just undervalue intrigue cards, but I don't know. I think it would have been worth the smuggle. I mean, I see now why he like chose not to smuggle, but he should have smuggled. Joon has another worker left. Not much in resources. Pretty low kind of across the board at this stage. Except for spice. I know he picked up a bunch from the Great Flat and just looks like he's probably stacked them over there. He could convert that spice into money, but I don't think that the Solari is very good at this stage of the game. I think that if he had track access, moving up on a track would be great. Would love to see him move up, right? The secrets for Ben and Gesserit is a victory point, so seems very reasonable there. Even just grabbing the 2 coins of the wealth and getting the Emperor track so he can get up to the friendship there because he's a little bit far away, and allowing him to like flex on Mentat in the future is worthwhile, having the 2 coins. He does have faction access, but he says, I've got some extra spice here. Don't really have explicit plans for it, so I'm going to trash card out of my deck, draw 2 cards. This is going to trigger another reshuffle, I think. 1 and then a reshuffle here. And this time again, he's I think his deck has enough cards in it now that when he draws this extra card and he draws his cards next turn and then plays his Kwisatz Haderach, it'll actually shuffle in correctly. But I'd have to count his discard pile, and I can't quite count it from the shuffling there. Two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like seven or 8 in there. So there is enough, I think. But it means that he wants to be very cautious about what he's doing in terms of drawing extra cards this turn and next turn if he wants to be able to shuffle in the Kwisatz for the turn after that. Turn 8. And again, we see the Signet Ring and the Diplomacy. If he had found a way to put the Signet Ring and the Diplomacy with the Kwisatz and then trigger some reshuffles, it'd be a lot nicer. Smuggler's Thopter 2 at this stage, right? Drawing into the extra cards and stuff like that. It's a curious time to have chosen to draw the extra cards. I mean, if he rips Kwisatz off the top, hooray, well worth. But, you know, your odds of that are 1 in 7 or 8 or whatever. So I think just drawing the Intrigue card would have been my choice here. And then you go to draw. Next turn, everything is in your deck. And then you just start drawing everything, right? Next turn, you're like, I'll go to the water space. I'll go to the research station space. He doesn't have the water for it, but let's pretend. I'll go to the selective breeding space, and then I'm going to draw as many cards as I can this turn, push all the way through the deck, trigger Kwisatz, just going to push me through the deck again, right? Like, doing something like that ends up being really, really nasty. Oh, we've got a Chris Knife here, which is going to push him all the way to the top and lock in that alliance. Also allowing him to do some shifting allegiances stuff. Really cool sequence from James. And puts him into the lead on the violence conflict track with just a single troop here. Is Jukka going to get 3rd place with 3 troops in? Get 1 spice? That's pretty awful. Yeah, Yuka's mid game just really struggled to convert into points, and I mean, I think a big part of that is not moving up the various tracks. It's just really far behind. He grabbed the early game victory point and just like really hasn't been able to grab too much since. A dagger, signet ring, woof. Pretty painful. Did he only do 2? No, he's got 3 guys out. Oh, right. The Imperial Spy, of course. Yeah. I think this is a reflection of how Carryall is just kind of like so-so, right? We talked about that before. And a big part of it is that he's like kind of confined to these spaces in the center of the board, not the left side of the board. That and the smuggler they've picked up, and they're not doing all the things that we need for him. Joon rips it. He hits the 1 in 7 or 1 in 8 or whatever it is and draws into Kwisatz. Oh my God. That is potentially a game-winning draw right there. Because now all of his good stuff is cycled into his discard pile, and his goal is to just cycle through. He's going to get, essentially into those things on turn 8 or whatever. Ooh, man, that is very good. What a rip. He goes into selective breeding again to do exactly what we're talking about here. Trash and draw. We're going to cycle into the deck. All the good stuff's in the discard pile. So everything I talked about before, now he basically, from having made that pretty insane hit, is going to get him into that cycle that he wants to. Wow, that's really great. Oh, man. Players here are not like me, because I'd be complaining at the table. I'd be joking about it, but I'd be complaining for sure. Like, you gotta let people know when they got you on their beats, right? It's a pretty quiet seeming table overall. Trashes the Dune the Desert Planet. I thought I saw him draw an extra card, so it's possible that he played an intrigue in the midst of that to draw another card along the way. Oh, he drew an extra card for Kwisatz Haderach. Of course. That makes sense. So it draws 3 cards, right? So now he just got the 1 card in his deck or whatever. Maybe it was like a 1 in 6 chance or a 1 in 5 chance, but even still, if he doesn't hit it, it's trouble for him the next turn. And he did hit it, and it actually sets it up. Wow, that's nuts. Looks like he's got a full grip there. For sure, buys a victory point. I'm not too surprised. I didn't actually count it, but that seems about right. Yeah. Then Joon, who I already thought was leading, drawing that Kwisatz there puts him absolutely in the driver's seat. Is the game going to end next turn is the question, right? Do we have anything cute here? Jukka moving up to the second with a card? Is that worth it? Oh, looks like Joon also had a bunch of daggers to move into first. Why are you doing this, Jukka? Has he got too many cards in hand? What a curious play. I mean, he's spending an intrigue card to steal a spice away from James. Looks like they're having a conversation with the judge, but it's a really curious play. They're talking about the sequencing of who gets to play their intrigue cards, I think. So, yeah. Right, because it's sort of this like, okay, well, someone else going to blink, someone else going to play a card. Would you like to play anything? It's my turn. Am I going to play anything? And it's interesting because different games have different rules about this, but I think this one's pretty clean. It's just like you play your intrigues in turn order. If everybody passes, you're done. Since the ties are not like first come, first serve, it's not like racing to play your cards. It's actually like you want to sandbag your cards. You want to see if your opponents are getting involved in the mix somehow. They double checking the number of daggers there are. Is there a card missing? They're just checking the floor? Classic. Doing a rules check. All right, well, we're going to hit a pause here then. See you guys in a second. All right, well, I don't really know what the result of that was, but got everyone back at the table now. And yeah, not surprising to see Jukka come in with another card over the top here. But this isn't the fight you want to be going hard on. I mean, it does hurt the player who's leading. Tiebreaker here from Joon. Really, really painful. Yeah, it just didn't seem like the fight. There's so much invested here. 3 intrigue cards, 8 troops. I mean, the amount that's been expended on this fight, oh my God, and this moves him out of the situation where he can even highliner next turn. I hate it. I hate everything about it. I mean, like, if I'm Allan at the table, I'm like loving this. This is awesome. And James, yeah, of course, he like ends up sliding into third because of this whole sequence, but like he used one troop. Worm Riders did the rest, Not that heartbreaking. Are we having another rules confusion right now? I think there's anything weird going on with the sequencing. Ugh, man, that is just a lot of resources expended to gain very little, right? I mean, it's the spice will get returned, basically. One of those cards will get returned. And admittedly, it makes it so the other player is not getting the thing. Like, there is a value into Joon, who is leading, not getting these resources. But for Jukka, to me, this feels like a death knell. Anything else here? Nope. Looks like we're good. Resolving. Claiming our stuff. And then we'll go into turn 7, the big boy conflict. And so even without Highliner, Jukka should be able to win this fight just by pushing in troops by taking other actions. Double victory points here. It's going to knock out one of those flags. I don't think anyone else is holding on to 6 spice or even really that close to the 6 spice. And we're going to set up for the next round here. Let's take a quick review of where people are at. So Jukka's position, as I've been going on and on about, I think is certainly the weakest. He's at 3 points. He's a half step away, so he's at 3.5 points, let's say, with not a lot of infrastructure in the deck. He does have a good pile of resources here, but not great ways to leverage them into very fast points. So I do think he is in the losing seat right now. He hasn't really been able to use the swordsman much to his advantage over the course of the game, even though he got it on turn 3. Joon with the turn 2 swordsman and the Kwisatz Haderach, both is I think leading quite dominant here. He's at 7 points. He's one step away from taking the Bene Gesserit alliance from Allan, and he's first this turn, so he has the opportunity to kind of claim that first. So he's at 7.5 points here. His challenge is that he's going to need to find ways to score other points. It could be using Kwisatz and card draw to essentially do Spice-Mist Flows like he was just doing. He can get involved in some fights. Looks like he's maybe got a troop left over, or maybe that's supposed to be cleaned out of the middle. I don't know why he would have left that over. Allan has actually, I think, come back in a kind of impressive way from what I've seen. He's got a half point on the Emperor track sitting there. He's a half point away from the Bene Gesserit if he's able to beat Joon there. And his deck is the one that is the best of all the decks at this stage because he's trashed all the chaff in it to essentially buy another Spice-Mist Flow every turn pretty consistently. That being said, his infrastructure is kind of so-so in terms of like what he can do. He also has High Council, so it's another reason why he's going to be buying those every turn. But he's got doesn't have the swordsman. I think maybe doesn't have a ton of resources. We do see, well, he's got a couple of resources, actually. It's just hard to see under his camera there. He's going to play that Test of Humanity there to further tax other people on their actions. So it really does depend on what Joon has first here in terms of who is going to get that alliance, which I think makes a big, big difference. Then we've got James. James is also in pretty good shape. He is sitting at no half points, though. He's kind of overcommitted a bit to the Fremen track, but he'll be able to turn that into a Shifting Allegiances extra point at some point in the game, although he might need to get an extra spice. He has a ton of coins, but it's really late in the game to need a ton of coins. I do think that not getting Mentat next last turn seemed a little bizarre to me. And so here we go. Space travel. For Joon, he's going to say, I might not get the Bene Gesserit allegiance, but I will be able to get the Spacing Guild one. not too long from now. As he heads there, I could see him going to the Great Salt Flat, picking up a huge amount of spice, and then just going for a wombo combo on turn 8 if no one else is able to scoop up any spice. That being said, second and third place this turn is a bunch of spice, so this might be the round where you're looking at highlinering. Actually, I can't help but wonder if trying to find a couple spice and planning on highlinering this turn could have been a good line for Joon. Allan enthusiastically slams down the Test of Humanity. He's going to have other players discard some cards. He's going to draw some cards himself as he continues to trash stuff. I think, again, he has to trash out of his hand as he's constantly drawing from his deck over and over. So not the best trashing situation, but the drawing cards is going to probably get him into a position where he's absolutely able to buy a Spice Must Flow this turn, which is what's more important to him. And he will get a victory point, and he will get an intrigue card as he advances up the Bene Gesserit track there. He's already ready with his discard or his trash. Unsurprisingly, he's had the moment to think about it, whereas everybody else has to think about what they're discarding. Lots of Dune desert planets being discarded along the way here. James just looks so fried to me. I think I'm saying that because I played with him and like I didn't get the same sort of like demeanor that I played with him twice this week actually. And didn't get the same like sense as the way he looks in this fight. It could be the camera angle or something. All right, I missed what Allan trashed, but again, I assume something not so good. And we draw into the Lady Jessica here. So she's got to do her thing and draw some extra cards. We've also got the ring here for an extra coin. Mentat is a quick snap up for James, which makes a ton of sense. He's the one who takes advantage and draws the extra cards that go there. I actually didn't see what he played for the Mentat. Maybe he just played a dagger. Yeah, I can see a dagger in play there. Guild Bankers here for Jukka. So not using them to discount the Spice Must Flow. Really good card that's just kind of essentially not really been able to find a way to live its life. And looks like I actually misread Yuka's Spice situation. Oh no, because he got Spice back last turn. So he is going to be able to highliner. He's going to go in here. I don't think he needed to do this yet. I don't think that anyone else had it. He could have let other people be cute, see how many troops he needed to push in. I don't think he needed to rush this. I guess you could be concerned that someone's going to play an intrigue card and get a couple spice, but like, wouldn't they have done that in the first round if that was going to be the case? I would have waited. And sometimes I'd be punished for that. He pushes in 7 troops. Hopefully that's enough for him to win. Those 2 points will get him back in the pack there. Pretty quick, uncharacteristically quick Eric Heen pickup here by Joon. Using a reconnaissance. Dropping in a guy, drawing a card. Pretty decisive there. I guess he did keep the troop out there. It must have... Maybe it's like a beast thing or something. Some other card. I don't know. Maybe an intrigue card. I do think it's worth probably pushing in the second troop here. I mean, there's a lot of spice to be had. But maybe he says, you know what, I'd happily take third place here. And if James is going to come in, he's going to have Worm Riders. I don't even know if Allan has troops or has ever really considered doing anything with troops, so don't need to be too worried about him. Allan here is going to pick up just a couple spice, though, with the 1 water, so he's doing something really specific. Smuggler's Thopter here will draw him some more cards. So pretty quick and decisive action for him. Maybe he didn't have the 9 he needed. Or maybe just drawing through cards in his deck is still the more worthwhile thing for him to do. But not taking the Imperial base in there is interesting. It does give Joon a free spice, so that may have been part of the concern there, part of the consideration. James, what did James do? It pretty quickly decided. He went to the Bene Gesserit space, got himself a intrigue card, and one step closer to a needed victory point. Jukka here playing diplomacy to do the same thing for himself as he advances up on a track. Looks like he might grab himself the Emperor Friendship Alliance all the way to the top. I think I missed where he got the third one of those. Oh, probably with the Conspire last turn. And all of a sudden, Jukka is putting himself back in it. Here's an extra point here. He's only one space away on Guild now, which he can do with Smugglers or anything like that. I don't know that he has enough spice for it, but something that he can work towards, or just placement there. He's got a lot of water available to him. So if he wins this battle this turn, he is actually in spitting distance of the final there, with a lot of troops in garrison too. Junior, I feel like, is just trying to figure out ways for himself to score points. He's been boxed out of the Bene Gesserit alliance. He's been boxed out of the Fremen alliance. He can't continue advancing on the Spacing Guild track this turn. Pleasing the Emperor might not be a bad idea for him ultimately, as a way to get a point that people really can't contest quite as much. Stilgar here is going to do his favorite Siege Tabur action as he gets himself some more resources, puts a troop in, probably just holds on to it. And now he's got the water to pick up a bunch of spice so that he could go highlinering in the future. He might not need to. Just getting second or third in the conflict is enough spice for him to highliner, but he's got to worry about the fact that on turn 8, he is going to be the 4th player. Quick pass here from Allan, who's got 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, yep. Picks himself up as spice must flow, advances another point. Methodically advancing to 8. He does have one contestable point, the Bene Gesserit Alliance track, but I don't think Joon has a good way of taking it. Well, it's not true. Kwisatz actually does double up pretty quickly. So it is stealable, but it is quite likely that next turn is the last turn, as Allan will buy one more Spice Must Flow and advance on the Emperor track, and that's all he needs to do to get to 10 points. So I would count on turn 8 being our last turn here, unless Joon is going to do something to steal that point away from them. But again, if Joon is stealing that point, is he ending the game instead? So we are looking at a pretty limited amount of time here. Looks like we have what is this? Coins to advance on a track of your choice. So the Baron's going to go ahead and advance on the Spacing Guild track. Oh, it was the Master Stroke. That's how he got up on the Emperor track. That makes total sense. Of course. The Baron Harkonnen Master Stroke with the Highliner. Duh. I should have been talking about that all game long. Realizing when he was buying on tracks that he actually had an extra point just sort of like hiding behind his half steps and everything like that. Makes sense. Let's get back in frame here. All right. What was that? I think it was a couple liaison pickups from Joon. Pretty anticlimactic turn end there. And James here flipping out just a pile of unused swords as he has other things that he had to do this turn for scoring points. Did he even place his third worker? Oh, here we go. Coins for troops. And then he's going to deploy them. Can he steal here? 7 swords with Peter gets him to 7, of course. And he can push up to 5 troops in, I think. Right, with a 3. He could go with 5. Or is it just 3? I don't actually know that intrigue. I think it is. Okay, it looks like just the 3. So Jukka going in with the 7 here ends up probably being correct. As this will be a 13. Kind of depends on if he has an intrigue card to steal it and if Jukka has an intrigue card to block it. So Jukka might have played out all of his combat cards last turn. But you might have more. He is the Baron. He's drawn into extra stuff, so can't quite see if he has any available to him right now. Looks like it was maybe just a liaison show and either no purchase or a liaison purchase for him. Yeah, the card row is pretty dead at this point in time. It's basically Spice Must Flows or nothing. There he has it. 2 points for Jukka. Suddenly this just became a very close game across all of our players. Everybody else, I think, was setting up for turn 8. Allan methodically scoring points as his deck has sort of been set up to do. Jukka actually gets an absolute catapult this last turn, getting 3 points from friendships and alliances, 2 points from that, so 5 points in total to send him from 3 up to 8 this turn. And so the question is, does he have the gas to win the fight on subsequent turn? James able to get in there with 5 spice, so now James has 6 spice, and he's got turn order priority on everybody except for Allan, who's not really demonstrated any interest in conflict so far. Oh, I see. The extra troop is out there because of the flag things, having previously won those battles. So that's a nice little advantage for James here going into this fight, and that explains why Joon had the one from last turn. I always forget about that perk of having won a prior battle in one of these locations. And I think that James, we're going to see him push in the Highliner and just go whole hog. As long as he has the faction access for it, we're going to see some crazy nonsense. Allan here taking a look at maybe a fold space in hand. Elite Kinds looks like another test of humanity. I'd be annoyed as the other players that he keeps drawing this at the beginning, but frankly he draws his deck every single turn, so it's not too surprising. It's not a very big deck, and he basically, yeah, he goes through it every time. That being said, Test of Humanity is not as exciting for him because it doesn't get him any points at this stage. I think he does still have the spice to continue doing the exact same thing that he's been doing, drawing into more cards. Everybody else is going to do some discarding. See a little shuffle action here. We see a shifting allegiances in there for James, which can do nothing terribly cute, but it does score him a victory point. However, if he does Highliner, he won't have the spice to also shift some allegiances. So that's a little taxing. Probably still does want to end up mentatting at some point. In fact, everybody's got some coins, except for maybe Joon just has 1. And some draws there. Could be that Allan only gets to 9 this turn. It's possible he doesn't have a way of getting up the Emperor track. Well, I guess he draws most of his deck, so there's a good chance he draws into his diplomacy. And who really wants 2 coins at this stage? Quick off. That is risky in terms of the Highliner situation for James. If Joon wants to, he's got the 6 spice needed. But maybe he doesn't have faction access. Maybe I think he's only got the 1 card in his deck that lets him do it. And he draws a couple more here with the Mentat, which is his next best option. Is that a diplomacy play that allowed him to go up there? Must be. Oh, no. He Mentated with the shifting allegiances. Pays his 2, goes up on the Bene Gesserit, and knocks himself down. Oh, I see. He went down on the Bene Gesserit to go up on the Bene Gesserit. Something like that. Basically just made it into a point. It's fair. Spice Smugglers. This is just a way to push some troops into the battle. An intrigue card is better than probably a card draw for Jukka's pretty crap deck. And we're going to see a full 3-troop push. Intrigue card. That's about it for Jukka. Would not be surprised to see a Highliner here, but I also said that before and have been wrong. Although actually at this stage, I don't think other people have 6 spice. Jukka will indeed go ahead and spend this and to get 3 coins. Look curious here because can't do anything with it just yet. But maybe he's holding a guild bankers in hand and is hoping that Joon does not have the guild access here. It's not bad to speculate on it if he doesn't, if Jukka's not planning on using the spice somewhere else. But Joon indeed does have the diplomacy. He's going to come in here. This is a 1 point for the allegiance, and then a really, really big threat on the 2 points to close out the game here with a 7-troop push. Yep. This for him just became a game of how can I get the rest of my guys out here? He's got all this water. Water might turn into a research station card draw situation, because getting 3 spice and pushing in no troops is not too exciting of a use of water. Could also see Arrakis being kind of a high value spot here, just as a way to get more troops out there and get at least a minimum of 1 troop. Is this a fold space? I think he was trying to fold space into a Mentat just for the card draw, not the Mentat itself. But that doesn't quite work. There's really, well, I mean, again, I think that if it's a fold space, he should go to wealth, right? That's a victory point right there. Maybe he already has an intrigue card that gives him a step up on the Emperor track, so he isn't concerned about it. There we go. Squeak on up to 9 points. Depending on the intrigue cards, we might see a situation where we've got multiple players at 10 and we are looking at spice as our tiebreaker here. All right. Like we said, Arrakis probably a kind of decent value action at this stage. We'll see a full troop push here. Got 5 spice sitting around for a good tiebreaker for James, but not doing a whole lot else. Let's see. This is a trash card? No, this is a gain a card or something like that. Pretty unexciting intrigue at this point in time. And we're going to see a signet ring coming out. So he probably has a full grip of intrigue cards. It doesn't want to be forced to discard something random, as the Baron will pick up yet another intrigue card and push as many troops as he possibly can out with the use of the Siege Tabur. I don't know. So we've got 12 to 14, pretty close contest there. The real question is, did Jukka just draw into even more intrigue cards with violence on them, or did he use them all in that earlier conflict? Here we've got the Beast pushing out some more troops, doing beastly things. This is where we really see the Beast Signet Ryan. This is really where we see the Beast's signet ring shine best. There we go. And James shuffling here to draw into 3 cards. Can he rip something nasty? It rhymes with Lizak Fatarash. I said James, but I meant Joon. I feel like Joon is favored to win here. That's what this looks like. It looks like it's going to come down to Joon and Allan at 10. But is always a possibility of some fun. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. D at 6? Oh, he's short one. 6 in cards, 2 there. He's going to be stopped at 9. Oh, no. I mean, yeah, that is how it goes. Rough beating. I think he actually just straight up didn't buy anything, too. Oof, daggers. Huge push of troops in here for James, who did still suits, just as a way to push these 4 troops in and get in the mix. This is clearly a threat of I've got Worm Riders in hand and I'm trying to win with my Worm Riders. And Jukka here with 12 troops looking a little bit feeble. He passes with the single dagger. I think he just doesn't have the oomph. The setup that both James and Joon were doing last turn as they kind of stalled out at their 7-8 points or whatever it was, in Jukka's huge 5-point turn, they were indeed taking that time to set up for something real. This does a lot of work for Joon right here. Draws some more cards, gives him a chance to rip into enough to actually buy a Spice Must Flow, potentially putting him at 11 points if he wins this conflict. Maybe even putting him at tied at 10 if he's got an intrigue card that gives him a victory point. It picks up a couple spice for the tiebreaker purposes. Yeah, really, really nice Smuggler's Thopter here. That's doing a ton of work. That's the best you want to see a Smuggler's Thopter be. We don't see James picking up Spice Must Flow. He flipped it so fast that I didn't see how far off he was. But it looks like we were basically just down to Joon ending the turn here. And the game is ending this turn. Whoever wins this conflict is going to 10. But we just don't know if intrigue cards are going to make it so that the person who wins the conflict wins the game, or if there's a possibility of some extra points at the end. Like Allan might have the endgame card that scores points based on Spice Must Flow's had, and so on and so forth. Kwisatz Haderach here. Really, really, really big deal. He's going to send one of his workers over to Still Suits because he's got the water for it. He's going to push some extra troops into play. That might put it out of range. That might put this into Joon's winning situation. With a worm on top, he might be at a cool 11 for a definitive victory rather than a tied victory off of the spice or anything like that. In fact, actually looking at spice situation, doesn't have a great alternative there. Did we miss? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Guess so. Doesn't look it from what I got flashed, but of course I can't see all the cards really. I see 7 at least. Oh no, 8. I see 8 at least. But I also see Spice Must Flow in there, which doesn't do anything. He should get a spice though. Is it not a Spice Must Flow? Maybe I can't see that card correctly. That's why. But either way, he gets another Spice Must Flow, giving him a point, putting him up to 9. Do we have any cards for this conflict? Everyone here sweating. That looks like it's about it. 2 points. Victor. I think at that point he's basically unassailable. 2 points for other people from their intrigue cards are not going to get them into the position they need to be to beat him there. So I think that means that Joon is going to be our winner. And is that stone cold the end of the game? No other endgame victory cards, it looks like. So Joon wins. Allan second place. I was skeptical of Allan's position. He played a really kind of disciplined, just deck building game. He didn't get into the mix in the same way that the other players did, which maybe didn't give him as much control as you would hope to have in a game like this. But he was just sort of advancing along the way. He might have been able to hit for 10. Oh, looks like Joon even more dominant here. Extra point, 2 points. No, just 1 point. An extra point for cornering the market. for a very, very dominant victory. Oh, I guess he maybe did have the most. Yeah, Kwisatz Haderach and turn 2 Swordmaster. I mean, he just kind of ran away with the early start. That turn where they flipped Kwisatz was nuts. I mean, the fact that he drew all of his two persuasions there was really, really impressive. And we see James and Jukka looking a little bit less enthusiastic than the other players, but still quite gentlemanly. Everyone shaking hands, and we see that Jukka is in 4th by 2 spice, losing to James, who will get 3rd. Cool. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you had some comments along the way. If you do, of course, feel free to drop them in the chat. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye.